Hello and welcome to this episode of The Inner Estate with your host, Bridget Stuart. My guest today is Brian Swift. Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Bridget.
And I know that you're a man that goes by a lot of different titles. And one of them that's quite intriguing is the Quadfather. We will get into that more later. But you're an accomplished author, speaker, and coach. And you, from what I've learned, touch the lives of so many on a daily basis. So I know that we're going to talk a lot today about the title of your new book, even Becoming Unparalyzed. And you're working with people and giving them tools where they can get out of their own way and get into action. So before I just attempt to describe all of it, I'd like to let you describe, what are you passionate about and what does that mean to you?
I'm passionate about life and living it, not just surviving. I live by a mantra of faith, family, and friends. And I have always attacked life, at least the last 45 years, based on my faith, based on my family and health and friendships, which include business. And it has served me well to live my life that way. So I'm passionate about living life with those three non-negotiables. And they have other things under them, and we'll talk about some.
And I just want to say it one more time. So it's faith, family, and friends.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And is that, just to get a little more specific, is that something that you think about in the morning when you wake up? Is it something where you start each day recommitting or refocusing on faith, family, and friends?
Every morning, it's just part of the way I start my morning, being grateful and waking up with gratitude. And every night, praying for those that really need more support than I do, that need that direction, that need that comfort, need, that love, that they find it. That will be a big part of what gets all of the obstacles out of our way.
I agree. I have a similar yet different approach in the morning where I have trained myself that my first thought every morning is another day above ground. Let's go get it. And let's make the most of today.
Absolutely.
So it is similar but different language. And I think you and I both could attest to the difference that makes in our lives, certainly, and the people we're around.
100%.
Yeah. So you have written 9 books. You have one that's about to be released early 2026. I'm going to include pre-ordering information and links everywhere we put the podcast. But Brian, what are most of your books about, and what are your speeches and your speaking engagements and coaching? What is that typically around?
Sure. So, the books are probably driven in a self-help, inspirational type of tone and message. With the exception, I want to say this one isn't, but I wrote a children's book called
Okay.
Having a Ball, but it's still driven in a optimistic, positive way to go through life. And all the characters are different. One's a hockey puck, one's a baseball, basketball. But I'd say they're all driven towards finding purpose, knowing your direction, doing all the things it takes to stay out of that dark rabbit hole that so many people fall in. I mean, including the youth today. So
Yes.
They're all somewhat driven that way with different tones. This last book, Becoming Unparalyzed, talks probably more about the problem of becoming paralyzed. Why do we get mentally paralyzed? What causes it? The effect it has. More importantly, the later chapters talk about how to get out of it. Little things I've done over 45 years that have allowed me to wake up every day feeling blessed, waking up with gratitude and attacking the day. So,
And I believe that you have very specific qualifications and firsthand experience developing these skills and techniques. And that would tie back to what happened 45 years ago. Spoiler alert, he's not 45 years old. So if you think he's talking about when he was born, no. Yeah, yeah, we both are 45 is in the rearview mirror. But so you have dealt firsthand with mental paralysis, and you also have experience with physical.
A little bit, yes.
A little bit, yes. So what part, because as I mentioned, makes you in some ways very uniquely qualified to speak and develop concepts on this topic. Can you share with everyone what is meaningful to you about that? And what obstacles have you overcome 45 years ago that has now allowed you to be this successful, vibrant man of faith with your family and your friends, and you're spreading this message of possibility and hope?
Yes, thank you. I would say, so I'll go back because it does start 45 years ago. 45 years ago, on the day after Christmas in 1979, I was at a park playing football with my friends, like I had done my whole 17 years on the earth. And I got tackled from behind, nothing traumatic, didn't fall on my head, nobody landed on me. It wasn't even a tough hit. And would end up a C6 quadriplegic. So at first I was paralyzed from the neck down. Over time, I've got some arm movement back, and I've just kept working towards that goal of being the best I can be. That being said, you go from 17 in the prime of your life, you've got the world by the end, everything's going great. You got a girlfriend, school's going well. You were just, doing something you usually did. I mean, I played 1,000 football games. And now your life goes to, you can't even feed yourself. You can't even scratch your nose. It's not a rude awakening at first. The amount of trauma that it causes really takes time to sink in, because as time goes on, you realize, oh, I can't do this and I can't do this. So I don't think at first it fazed me as much. And I was blessed to have extremely strong minded parents that were, my mom, probably more the faith end of, it doesn't matter why, we just got to keep moving forward. Things happen for a reason. That reason doesn't really matter. And I totally agree with that. So what do we do to keep moving forward? My dad, very similar. And, this is the way it's going to be way. So, when you see, if you were to hear some of the conversations or one-way conversations he had, you would find, most people today would think he was cruel and unusual. I would
Right.
just say he was delivering messages of love, tough love that anybody who becomes disabled or anybody dealing with a trauma totally needs. And I'll explain one of those. So I got hurt on December 26th. In January, so about 4 weeks later, I was turning 18. Now that, back in the day, 18 was like, that was your stamp of a little more freedom,
Right.
and kind of put you in that more of an adulthood way. So I was up at the hospital thinking this was not at the rehabilitation center. This is not what I had planned, right? This is not
Right.
my thought of how I wanted to turn 18 by any stretch. So he comes up to visit me for lunch, sits down at the table. And I don't remember what it was exactly said at first. I know I probably was in a little bit of a salty mood, thinking that next week I turn 18. This sucks. What do I really have to be happy about? And after about 10 minutes in the conversation, he stood up and walked over to the coat rack, put on his overcoat, walked back to the table, and he said, if I ever come up here and if you're feeling down, you're in bad spirits, you're not smiling, I'll turn around and leave. Not going to see me. He said, it is your responsibility to keep the family together. Said it is your responsibility to bring us all through this, because if you're smiling, we'll all smile. If you're doing okay, we will be okay. If you're upbeat and able to move forward, we will all be okay through this. And that was it. It was this declaration of like, this falls on you, and took off his coat, sat down, nothing else was ever said about it. And I share that story and people think it's horrible, but if it probably wasn't for those words, I don't know if I ever would have taken on the mindset I did, because I did not want to be the responsible party for making my parents' or family's friends' life miserable, despite my situation. And I remember that night it kind of sunk in like, holy cow, what else do you want me to do? Like, I'm the one hurt, I'm the one
Right.
injured, I'm the one with all this. But, I finally realized that, my accident did not happen to me. My accident happened to everybody. My accident
Yeah.
was devastating to everybody, my parents, my sisters, my friends, teammates. That's just the way it is. It wasn't about me. And I think in life, once you start to think about something outside of you and your problems, really helps keep things in perspective. And after a while, believe it or not, even back then, I realized maybe my accident didn't happen to me, it happened for me. Don't know why.
Right.
Well, why would you be in a better off, confined to a wheelchair as a quadriplegic, not able to have any, hand function, because that's the most hand function I have. How do you get through life? And back then, the outlook for a quadriplegic read like a Stephen King novel.
It was very
I mean,
grim.
absolutely. And I was at one of the best it's called now the Shirley Rhine Ability Lab. Back then it was called the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. It was like one of the top 2 rehab centers in the world, definitely in the country. And even there, they were really preparing you, not well, I would say, mentally, for what your life would be like. And I just decided I'm not going to be that statistic. My parents weren't going to allow it. My dad definitely wasn't.
No.
They came to fit me for an electric wheelchair, and they were like, my dad was like, he's not leaving here in an electric wheelchair. So fit him for a manual chair, will push his way around. I mean, that's just who he was. And that was it. Like, there wasn't a discussion. There wasn't a question asked. It was just get him a manual wheelchair, figure out how to push himself.
Wow. That's amazing. And I was just thinking, as you showed how you could move your hand, did they even believe that would be possible early on? Did they think that you
They're unsure at first because of the swelling. They wanted to see how bad the swelling gets. But, without moving your thumb, and you can only move that much, by sight, it doesn't look like you can do much. But you learn how to adapt.
how to do it?
And you learn how to pick things up. And you learn how to do things. So has this gotten much better in 45 years? No. But at points, I learned how to do more, how to adapt and hold things. Duct tape is my friend sometimes. There's nothing better than a good roll of duct tape. If I want to paint, just duct tape it to my hand, and, so as my arms got stronger, I learned to feed myself, and just do the normal care things, brush your teeth, try to
Right.
brush your hair, because even at that first, couple weeks, I couldn't even feed myself.
Right.
Couldn't
Right.
brush my teeth, couldn't. So it's a process of how far will you come. Now my cord was totally severed, so they knew there was probably no chance I'd ever walk or regain much function.
Right.
But that's not the worst part of it. Is the mental part after you get home. Because when you're in the rehab, you're in a friendly zone, right? Where people are like you, worse than you, some better than you. But when you get home, that's where the rubber meets the road, and everybody in the world wants to help you and be your friend. Give that about a month at home, and all of a sudden you start hearing crickets.
That's
You know what
right.
I mean?
Cricket Town. Yeah.
And that's where the rubber meets the road. I was so blessed that I didn't change, so I didn't lose friends. So many people say my friends left me, and my family doesn't like me, and I get a lot of unfavorable comments on my opinions of why sometimes things happen. My books are written not from going back and reading texts about spinal cord injuries and whatnot. It's from living and doing.
Yes.
There's nothing I haven't done that I might have put in a book that I didn't do. I didn't overcome. I didn't deal with that hardship. Going to school, your chances of getting a college education back in the day, less than 10%, working less than 10%, having a relationship, getting married, less than 10%. If you got married, most people only stayed married so many years. I mean, the outlook was horrible. And I just, along with my family, decided I'm not going to be a part of that.
You're gonna beat the odds. So what are
Yes.
some accomplishments you can share with everyone?
Well, I mean, the first thing was, after getting home, I think I went back to school the next week, finished high school. That summer, I started school. Like, for my parents, it was like, no, you got to start college. I mean, you're not going
Right.
to go into the trades like I probably would have. So I started junior college, took one class so I could get an idea of just the building,
The
how
flow and how you could
exactly
manage it
being
all.
picked up by a bus, that bus I had made fun of my whole life.
Yeah.
So finished junior college, and I loved competing. I love athletics. So I started playing wheelchair sports. I played quad rugby. I swam. I did track and field. Then went on and finished my, and finished my 4-year degree, learned how to drive, which back then a lot of quads weren't driving for
Right.
two reasons. One, it's costly. Two, they just didn't believe they could drive. So it wasn't a big option that they wanted to teach in the rehab facility. After that, went on to law school, finished law school 3.5 years later and got married. I have been married 36 years.
That's great.
You know, we went through infertility. It was weird because they didn't know if I'd be able to have kids. And so after going through treatments and figuring out in a very rudimentary way I could have kids, we tried 5 times, or I should say we tried a bunch to inseminate, and found out my wife had some issues that wouldn't let us have kids. And I was hell bent on having a family. I just That's just the way it was going to be. So looking back now, we've adopted 3 kids, all so blessed. They were all very young when we got them. And we created a family that was meant to be, this is our family. Brought together through our hearts, and what this was, God's plan, how our family was. And I don't look at them as adopted, even though we all look different. My daughter's from China. My one son's from Guatemala. And my other son is from the east side of the city. So our family is very unique in that way. But I mean, I'm so blessed. I got 3 amazing kids. I've got a woman that thinks I walk on water. I mean, I can't stand myself sometimes. I don't know how she does it. She's a saint. We built our own house after years. My wife's a teacher. I went into corporate and then fought that battle of, the perception of what you can do as a man in a wheelchair. And it was always that, like, this is the job, we're going to let you do this. All right, well, I've succeeded. Now what? And I don't think they were ready for that.
Right.
Okay, well, keep doing it. You're still doing a great, okay, I succeeded. Now what? Well, we've never really put anybody in that position, so I was a first for so much, for so many things out there.
It
And
sounds like it.
I worked in corporate for 25 years, got up at 5, left the house at 6, was to work by 7, worked all day, came back home, and I coached then. I got an opportunity to coach at my old grammar school. So I coached football and basketball for about 20 years from high school. Then I went on to my high school and coached sophomore basketball and football. And I just loved the competition. I love being around sports and athletics. I love watching people grow and develop and mature and being a part of that process. So I coached for 20 years. My wife, I think we saw each other for dinner, brush your teeth, change, go to bed. And I don't know, maybe that's why we've been married 36 years. I'm not sure.
Maybe that could be your next book, The Secret to a Long Marriage.
Yeah, only be home the 12 hours or for 10 hours,
45 minutes a day.
8 of which you're sleeping. And then life got in the way. My own kids were getting older. I wanted to spend time with them. I wanted to raise my kids. The money wasn't important. My wife is a teacher. Teachers don't make a lot of money. I was blessed to be pretty successful. 25 years in corporate, I kind of stepped away, and I felt there was something bigger for me. And there were 5 things I wanted to do. So I wanted to write a book. That was one. I wanted to kind of get my health back from under me. My health was sliding. I was putting a lot of hours and driving and whatnot, and I didn't get the chance to spend much time kind of recouping. So I wanted to get my health back on me. I wanted to spend more time with my family. I wanted to start a nonprofit, and I wanted to become a certified speaker and coach. So I stepped away from corporate and started writing my book, became a certified John Maxwell speaker and coach.
I love John Maxwell.
Yeah, he's amazing. Spent time getting my health under me. Took my parents on tons of trips and my kids, and started a nonprofit, a 501c3 nonprofit called Swift Outdoor Accessible Recreation. The acronym is SOAR.
SOAR.
Getting people outdoors is, whether you have a disability or not, is so healing. It is
I agree.
so missed. It is medication times 4 with no bad side effects. There are no bad side effects of going outside and grounding. I mean, I do Zooms outside. If it wasn't so cold today, I'd be outside doing this, because for me, I think that really helped me heal. Getting back and coaching football, you were outside all day.
Yes.
Playing sports, I was outside. Any chance I get to do something outside, I did it with my family. We all shoot archery. We love exercising, go out in the garage or outside, even if it's not great out. The whole idea of SOAR was to come in and fit in where insurance didn't. So insurance only pays for things that are a medical necessity, which,
Okay.
trust me, is not a lot.
Right.
So for somebody who wants to try to maybe get back into photography, but they can't use their hands, they make a thing that hooks onto your wheelchair and will hold a camera and has something that you can use to just bite that will take the photographs. That's not paid for. You want off-road wheels, that's not paid for. And now, I mean, look how far we've come. There's so many attachments and things people with disabilities can do. Problem is, insurance doesn't pay for them because they're not a medical necessity. Well,
Right.
they are a necessity.
For mental health
Oh my gosh,
and
mental,
longevity.
emotional,
Yes.
just so much. You want to, and their stats, more mind blowing. People who are sedentary, they tend to get bed sores or pressure sores. The money that is spent on recovery, wound doctors, hyperbaric chamber sessions, sometimes a lot of times flap surgery to help close the money for that. They could buy everybody what they wanted that keeps
Right.
them more
And have money
mobile.
left over.
Absolutely. It's nuts. It's crazy. So that's kind of my story. And I've been blessed to do a little bit of talk speaking. The last couple speeches were at colleges, and I've talked from everything on having a positive mindset to how do you deal with pressure? Why is pressure good for you? How to move forward losing. There's so many leadership. I
Yes.
was blessed I worked on Michigan Avenue. I was on the 27th floor. I had my own corner office. I got to where I wanted to go. That was nice. That was beautiful. It was awesome. But at some point that luster wore off. And that's when I decided I need something more than this.
Hmm.
I can impact people's lives, a bunch of people for what I'm doing there. But if I opened a nonprofit and did speaking I could really impact 10 times the amount of people.
Yes. You would increase your ripple effect dramatically. Oh,
Absolutely.
that's what a blessing for all of us that you were inspired and compelled to step away from a great career and a great job and that success, and then set up this entire second career, including launching that nonprofit. It's really remarkable.
Absolutely. That has been such a blessing. People don't realize how it's semi-selfish in the fact that I get to see this awesome effect we get to have on people. And it is like taking a shot of happy pills, when you can impact somebody's life and their family's life and maybe the neighborhood's life by getting somebody something that they couldn't afford. They make little skis for the front of wheelchairs. And one of the kids, he's a young man now, but always wanted to go outside and play in the snow. Pushing your wheelchair around is okay, but he wanted to really move in the snow.
Yeah.
So we got him these skis that fit on your front wheels. And, the parents showed us a video then of the kids pushing them around, pushing them and spinning them. When you can make an impact like that, you can't put money doesn't buy that. It's hard to put words to even, but knowing the impact you made it creates that momentum of joy and bliss and all those great chemicals in your body go off. So, it's just such a wonderful thing to be able to do. And I'm blessed to be able to do it.
It's remarkable. I find that SOAR sounds just very intriguing to me. I want to look more into that. And you are
Thank you.
creating, and this ties in with your new book. The young man that got the skis and his friends are pushing him around and spinning the wheelchair and doing all that in the snow, that has impacted the man he's grown into and his perspective and how he's impacting others. And in your book, Becoming Unparalyzed, which I have not read yet, it's not out yet, but I am definitely pre-ordering. But it sounds like you are tackling the mental paralysis and the mindset that we all, regardless of physicality, encounter struggles with getting stuck in our own mind and then not taking action that we desire or we know we could do or what's possible for us. And that
Absolutely.
can lead to, as you know, all sorts of things: regret, missed opportunities, lost loves, so much, right? Could you share a little bit with us about how critical is the becoming unparalyzed mentally?
Well, I did a speech at Northwestern last year, and it was entitled Becoming Unparalyzed. being in a wheelchair, I think everybody was expecting me to talk about being physically paralyzed, and maybe I'm walking now. I don't know what they were thinking. And I wanted the topic to be that way. And with me being in a wheelchair, you would automatically think. So, I talked about, this topic's extremely important to me, but it's not about being physically paralyzed. Mental health in our country is at an all-time low. And I'm not just talking about people with disabilities, which is 20% of the population in our country, which is a large part. 20% of the people in the United States have some form of a disability. I'm talking about for the average Joe walking down the street, for the guy getting in his Mercedes, for the guy getting in his BMW, for the lady getting in her SUV, facing that mental paralysis is a part of our lives. There are so many people that have never learned how to overcome that, how to deal with it. And as we all know, we've become a society of let's label and drug. You
Yeah.
have this, let's
Oh.
get you on a prescription that will
And
help
then
you.
and then we'll put you on another prescription to handle the side effects from the first prescription.
Let's not talk about all the side effects until you've all taken it. And then we're going to come out and let you know, don't know if you had to. So I am, I am against all that. We don't need all those prescriptions. They have proven, one, not to work. They just create long-term customers for the big pharma industry or the hospital industry. And they've created more problems than good. And I'm not saying there's not a time and a place you shouldn't take
That's right.
something. I'm
Right.
not against that. There is a time and a place. But when we talk about mental paralysis, there's a lot of parents who have it. And if they have it and don't know how to get out of it, how are they going to teach your kids how to get out of it? So believe it or not, a lot of the people I coach and talk to don't have disabilities. Most of my coaching is with people that are able-bodied. They're running companies, they're entrepreneurs, whatever they're looking just to find a better place and ways they can cope and deal with themselves without taking a pill.
Right.
And I had to deal with that at 17 because everybody in the hospital that had a disability that was a spinal cord injury, they all got Valium. And I saw, which was the drug du jour of the day back in the early 80s. And I had to sit around and I watched people just get zombied out on Valium.
Right.
And that was their way of dealing with it. Now it's like, how do you deal with life? Do you take pot or are you on a baclofen pump or are you, Mike, I don't do anything. I don't take meds. I don't take pain meds. I should. I pushed my chair for 45 years. Yes, my arms and shoulders kill me, but I have found other ways to deal with that.
Mhm.
And none of them rarely have anything to do with prescription medication. So the paralysis end is that we are all going to come across times that we spin out of our comfort zone and spin out of that routine we're in. First, you have to identify it and be willing to admit it like anything. That's hard enough for people to do. But if you don't have a framework of how do you get out of it, and more importantly, how do you identify it? I had to deal with that when I got hurt. I had to deal with it when I had to go to school and figure out a way to get around the campus on my own. I had to deal with it when I wanted to drive. How can I drive? Oh, there wasn't a lot said about that. I had dealt with it when, getting a job, going to, dealing with corporate. I dealt with it when I went to law school, and that was a trick. I dealt with it when I got married, and I dealt with it trying to have kids. I could keep on going and talk about all the times I dealt with it because, especially as a man, I'm old school. It was like I couldn't let my disability and I swore I would never let it get in the way of my family,
Right.
my parents. Like I still had a job as the man of the house. I had to provide. Plus, my kids seeing me get up every day. It didn't give them much of a chance to whine and complain.
That's right.
So, because sometimes I'd make a joke, up to them, they'd come up and be like, my legs hurt, yesterday. And I'm like, oh, you can feel your legs? Oh, that's nice. Really feel your leg, So yeah, they learned quick. I'm probably not the right guy to complain around
Right.
because my sarcasm will bury you. And I'm not just that way with my kids. I was that way as a coach. Like, oh, is it real hot for you? Is this hard? Well, why don't you go tell Coach Swift how hard it is? And I'm pushing my wheelchair on the field and Or, you could just tell they're like, no, I'm not going to go do that.
Not gonna complain.
That
Yeah.
is the wrong way. That is the wrong person to go to.
Right.
So, for me, it's become a symbol of strength. The things I do for people, that I hope people see, not to shine light on me, but I hope people see that. That's why, that series came out and I thought it was interesting. It was about Jesus and they just made it, and great series. John, one of the Johns in it, he had an infirmity. I don't know what it was, but he used a crutch, and he
Mhm.
at some point approached Jesus and was like, you've cured the blind, you've cured lepers, you know, you've helped so many people. How come you've not cured, helped me yet? And, his answer was, can you imagine the strength that you are, the example of strength you are to people when they see that you're not cured, but you continue just to keep doing what you're doing with me, and John finally got it because he thought, he'd been overlooked. We got that me syndrome, and it's not
Right.
about me, it's about we. And he finally got it. And all of a sudden he became a stronger person for it because he understood it. You don't have to like it. I don't like being in a wheelchair, but I
Right.
don't have to think about it, and it doesn't define me. I've never let it define me. But I have a lot of experiences to rest on that gave me confidence, which some people find, I don't want to say put off. Some people might say I'm even cocky. You know what? If you can back it up, I don't know if it's called cocky. I'm sorry. I'm very confident. That's what I like to
Right.
think.
Yeah.
And
You're confident.
am I cocky? Yeah, I might. I'm sarcastic. Maybe that comes off as cocky. I don't know, but I've been blessed to have all these experiences, and I do read a lot. I mean, I know I know I don't know as much as I would like to know. More
Mhm.
importantly, I don't know what I don't know.
What I don't know. Yeah.
I want to know more. I have a hunger to learn. The better I am, the more I can help people. It's kind of like with a nonprofit. The more, well, you just want to get more donations, and nobody's paid. I don't get paid for running SOAR for 11 years. Neither does my wife. It's all voluntary. So yeah, I want lots of money in there. You know why? Because I could help a lot of people. And guess
Yeah.
what? If I help a lot of people and I get more, because I'm going to ask for more, I can help more. And the more people I help, the more hopefully we grow. And the more I grow, the more it's just everybody can win in this world.
Everyone can win.
And I'm a believer that everybody can win. Something that I've changed my tune on that a lot of people still get told is you could have everything. No, you
Right.
can't have everything. Sorry, you can't have it all. You have to figure what your non-negotiables are, and that is the way you live. You figure out what is your moral compass, what are your standards, how do you want to live, and then you create non-negotiables, and every day you try to follow those non-negotiables. That's simple,
Right.
Part of them for me are sleep. I'm going to get 8 hours one way or another. That's non-negotiable. Why? Well, without sleep, without water, without movement, without air, you die. I
Yes.
need, I'm not asking for 12. I'm not asking for anything unreasonable.
Right.
That is one of them, to have some, a moment, I don't want to say moment, but a little bit of time for faith and family, non-negotiable every day. It's got to happen. So everybody's non-negotiables are going to be slightly different, but you have to set them up for yourself because it really gives you a great framework where now when you get bombarded with clutter and stuff, noise, as I call it, it's easy to disperse it now because is this part of I could put it into my negotiable part, but is it getting in the way of my non-negotiables? No, well, I can still consider it because I still have time. I mean, my non-negotiables take up 8 hours a day. Sleeping is 8. Okay, I've got plenty of time to still
That's
disperse to
right.
do other things.
Right. I
So
think
I think
that
that's critical.
that could even be a place to start for some people, is to
I ask
really
people,
figure out their non-negotiables.
I don't even know what that. Let's start with goals, and they're different than non-negotiables. Non-negotiables are way stronger than goals. But if you, when's the last time we wrote goals? 20 years ago. Like my kids do it every Christmas. Like they write goals, and they ended up for probably 20 years on the refrigerator. I want to know that you understand what you did right, what you did wrong, and that you have an opportunity to move forward. And the only way I know that as a father is if you write down and we have a discussion about your goals. And that happens for us between Christmas and New Year's.
That's beautiful. Family tradition.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Now, I've got a son that moved out. Yeah, he doesn't write my goals anymore. And you know what? I've said to him, I go, you work real hard, you have a lot going on, but you're not living your fullest. And I'm going to go back to, you don't have goals. You wake
Mhm.
up and you do, but for the purpose of what?
Right. Is it leading somewhere, or is it the hamster wheel of life of doing every day?
Which
Doing
we all
really.
get caught up on.
Yes, we do.
We all do.
Yeah.
But it's understanding. And when you have goals, you can go back and go, man, I think I'm seeing them more like a hamster. And so
Well,
what I do and talk about is not revolutionary, but because I've lived it and I've seen it work, not just for me, but for other clients, I'm adamant about what I do and how blessed I've been.
well, I want to go back to the cockiness. You grew up in the Chicago area?
Yeah, I grew up at 57th and Mozart, which is
Uh,
Gage Park, Market Park area,
Isn't that
which
part of like a Chicagoan's personality?
absolutely. Absolutely. You know how you identified yourself was by what parish you went to. Now,
Okay.
I don't know if that's just a Chicago thing, but when you met kids out or people out, they were like, "Hey, where you? You talk. Where you from? I'm from St. Albert the Great. I'm from St. Bede's. I'm from St.
Right.
Denis." So
Yeah.
yeah, I had a parochial. I grew up with going to parochial grammar schools and then
Mm-hmm.
to a Catholic high school, all boys taught by the Christian Brothers of Ireland that if you weren't behaving would, could, and enjoyed opening a can of whoop ass on you.
Right.
That was that was that generation. So yeah.
So anyone calls you cocky again, just say like, "What do you mean? I'm a Chicagoan," or however you would. I'm from St. Albert. Yeah, that's good. So anyone listening to us right now, listening to our conversation, they might be thinking, wow, sounds like this guy, every day is a great day. So do you ever have things go sideways? Do you face disappointment? What do you do when you're facing disappointment? Or you may just be having a slightly off day.
Yeah, this is a very tough time of year for me. My life gets closed in on because of living in Chicago. Our weather's changing and we've been blessed with crazy nice days, but everybody knows that we're on borrowed time. And then we could go through the next 3 months of barely being able to get out and
Right.
do anything outside. It's a chore just to get into the van sometimes if I'm parked outside to go and do something. So do I get down? Yes. But again, it goes back to mindset. I do not stay down. I don't know if you've ever heard of neuro-linguistics programming.
Yes. Yes.
So I have read about that. I have mastered it. It was something I was doing years ago. I didn't know I was doing. So, I am very aware of the way people talk and the way people talk around them. And that's a big part of how I help people. I don't want to say help heal people, but help people change is by the things they're saying to themselves, by the atmosphere around them. I mean, I've coached numerous people, young women, or I had to go and talk to their families and say, you guys are just negative. Like, if you
Yeah.
want her to change, you got to stop the way you guys talk here. You got to
Right.
get on the same page. It's like training a dog. Like, everybody's got to use the same word to train
Yes.
the dog. If I use a different word for how you're going to be fed, and people are using other words, you're going to confuse a dog. You're never going to train them. If you want
Correct.
people to be in good atmospheres, you've all got to get on the same page. So how you speak, neuro-linguistics programming, basically the mind, linguistics, language, programming, our minds are malleable. We can reset them. We can
Yes.
change the way we think. So just simple things is, I was working with one lady and she used the word sucked a lot. This sucked, that
Oh,
sucked,
yeah.
that person sucked. And I was like, have you ever thought about changing that word to, instead of saying sucks, just some things suck in life. It is what it is. That's interesting.
Yes.
Because when you say something sucks, you have already made up the decision that it's horrible, it's out of your control, there's nothing you can do about it. When you say it's interesting, you have not confirmed that it's horrible, that you've not confirmed that it won't change or anything. Just change the words. I look at stumbling stones as stepping stones. Some people look at them as stumbling blocks. I look at them as stepping stones. We take
Mhm.
these divine detours in life. That's what, when I have a down day, that's what I look at it as. It's a down
A
day.
divine detour.
It's a divine detour. What am I supposed to learn? And most of the time, what am I doing to get in my way? We're not like, well, it sucked. That person canceled on me and now I can't go do this. Well, in the scheme of things, is it the worst thing? Now I've got time to do these other things that I don't have time to.
Right.
It's a divine detour. You weren't meant to go to that event, maybe. So it's a divine detour. Figure out what you can do now. It's such a mindset. You have to work on that kind of mindset. You've got to be present. It's got to be top of mind. You've got to, have people journal, the things you're saying to yourself. Statistics are frightening. Let me expound on that. The average person has about 60,000 thoughts a day, believe it or not, subconsciously and conscious. Out of those 60,000 thoughts, 85% of them are negative.
Yes.
And we repeat those thoughts approximately
Over and
90%
over.
of the time.
Right.
Oh, it's amazing. People aren't walking around stabbing themselves in the head with all that negative floating around. Or like, oh, what do I have to look for today? I'm heavy, I'm overweight, I'm losing my hair, it's getting gray. Nobody loves me.
Right.
I was abused as a child. Oh my gosh. Get out of your way. You got to stop. And I have a formula for that. Stop, drop, and roll. When you get to that panic state, it's like being on fire. Stop, drop, and roll. You got to stop it. I mean, you just have to, I try to help people create more gratitude and then find, so many people out there, I ask, they don't have the answer for what makes you happy.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I don't know what makes me happy. I get it. I'm like, I've gone through that. And trust me, you better figure it out, because if you don't know what makes you happy, why do you expect to be happy?
Right. Right. And why are you surprised if you're not? So
Exactly.
it's really remarkable. And you are right. The mental paralysis, that is something that can impact anyone, anytime. And so I am really looking forward to learning in even more detail how you would guide someone to becoming unparalyzed in that regard.
Absolutely. And this is like I said, this is just part of our mental health crisis in the world, in the United States. I think I can impact it. I'd love to help 1 million people become unparalyzed. That would be I would love to do that. Not that everybody's the same, but the process and the whys are always going to be similar. They just don't know, how to mentally accept things, how to approach things, what to put into place to get out of their own way. So yes, you started, do I get down? Absolutely. Do I have bad days? Absolutely. But you never let a bad situation turn into a bad day, and don't let a bad day turn into 2 bad days. Don't let 2 bad days turn into a bad week. Don't let a bad week turn into a bad month. That is what happens, and that's why people go down the rabbit hole.
Right. Well, I think it's fascinating. And it is concerning what is happening, especially, well, like you said, worldwide. But I
Yes.
know, and you probably have more up-to-date information on this, but in North America, there's a rampant loneliness epidemic. And unfortunately, some of the last stats I looked at, it was impacting men more than women. However, women are closing the gap, unfortunately. Go figure. And I wonder how often that even plays into everything that we've been discussing.
It all does.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to be happier? Anybody, if I was in a room, does anybody want to be happier than you are? That doesn't mean you're unhappy. Do you want to be happier than you are?
Then you are.
I do. Every day I want to be happier than the last day. Why wouldn't you? And I had a good day yesterday. Wouldn't it be cool to have a better day today? Call me crazy, but I'd like to rope 30 days of that together and have a great month.
Have a great month. Right.
A great month doesn't mean you don't face problems. That's what some people got to get out of their mind. That doesn't mean you don't face issues.
That's right. It doesn't mean there's not some disappointment. It doesn't mean everything goes exactly the way that you envisioned and wanted it and all of that.
But to some people, that's how they define it.
Right.
And your expectations, which is something else I talk to about people's expectations. Some people's expectations are ridiculous. You're setting yourself up for massive problems because your expectations are unrealistic.
Well, some people may have told you at one point or another that your expectations of your own self in your life were unrealistic, and you crushed right through that.
I was blessed, and I had support. I mean, when I told kids in high school and grammar school that knew me that, like, yeah, after you go to college, start college, you don't see a lot of them. And I'm not, this isn't about bragging, and it's actually put myself down. I was a C student. I was a C get degrees guy. I thought I would go into the trades, make a great living like friends of my parents did and guys I knew. Well, when I got hurt, that wasn't going to happen. When I told kids that I was going to law school, they laughed. They're like, the Swifty, there is no way you're going to go to law school. Like, no way you're going to make it in law school. They laughed. I mean, I wasn't mad at them because if I were to think back the way they're thinking, I'd be laughing too. And when this 80-pound nun, my senior year of college at St. Xavier, came up to me and said, "What are you doing after? What are you going to do when you're done next year?" And I was like, "Well, I didn't have a great answer." She's like, "Well, you're going to go to law school, Sister Dennis." I probably not. No, you're going to go to law school. See me after school. Like, you didn't tell nuns no, first of all.
Correct.
I don't care how big or little they are. You don't
That's
say
right.
no to, you never said no to a nun. And then it was like, "Oh, you want to see me after school? Yeah, just come to my office when you're done with your last class." Not where I wanted to go, not where I wanted to be, right? I mean, I'm okay, Sister Dennis. And, I went to her office and she was like, "So the SAT, the LSAT is this time. That's the law school exam. And you're going to need books to study. I'll make sure you have those next week." And I'm trying to, like, how do I tell her no? Like,
Right.
"No, sister, I'm not that smart. I'm not law school. I'm first generation college. I'm not law school material. I don't, I guess I never found a way to do it because off to law school, off to the LSAT test, I went and got into 2 different law schools. And 3.5 years later, I've got
There you
my
are.
JD. So obviously I did not do a good job with Sister Dennis, but I'm guessing she knew better than me.
Yes, I think she did. You had people along the way that gave you such amazing
Yeah,
gifts. And I
I
want
did.
to circle all the way back to the beginning of our conversation when you were sharing that, if it's okay, I'm going to call it a turning point moment with your father in the rehab center. And obviously, I don't know your dad and I'll never know him. And I'm going to say I think he was brilliant because he gave you such a gift that day, saying things that, and again, I don't know him. It couldn't have been easy to say. He's looking at his son he loves, and so that wasn't easy for him to do, and he did it. And I feel like he gave you, in that moment, a sense of purpose and responsibility, the fact that you were needed and the family needed you. And what an amazing gift that he gave
Absolutely.
you.
He sure made it look easy, but I know inside it
It's
wasn't.
not. Yeah.
He's also the same man that summer I was it was my first summer, obviously in the wheelchair, and the heat gets to quads because we don't sweat, blah, blah, blah. Same man who walked in the front door and heard me having a discussion with my mother. And I was probably being sarcastic, but not too sarcastic because that was my mom. You only went so far. But and only heard part of the conversation, and walks into the kitchen, puts his briefcase on the counter, looks at me and goes, "If you're looking for sympathy, you could find it in the dictionary between and syphilis." And then picked up his briefcase, and just kept walking to the family room. So that's the kind of man that you were dealing with. I mean, like, I knew he loved me, but
Right.
like when he wanted to make a point, he made a point, but it was over with then. Like, it was done. There was no like, Dad's going to be upset or Dad's going to be in a mood. No, Dad be outside throwing the ball with you 2 minutes later after he
Right.
just said that to you. "Hey, do you want to come out? I'll work out with you in the garage." But he said what he said. I mean, that was it. I mean, a classic line from my pops.
That's amazing. I love that. And I can almost even hear the delivery because I'm sure you
Oh,
sound very similar to him. So that had to be quite a moment. And then thank goodness for Sister Dennis. So
yes.
this has been so compelling. And I want to
Thank
thank
you.
you for sharing in such an open and vulnerable way. I would love it because I imagine when your book comes out next year that I don't know if you're doing a book tour or what press you're going to do, but if we could have another conversation and dive into some of the specifics in the book, I would love to have you back on the
How
interstate
about
again.
you? You got it. You will be the
Good.
first one I meet with and talk about the book when the time comes.
Perfect.
You
And
you're
anyone,
you're what you do and what your brother does is amazing, and I love that man dearly. It is
Mhm.
frightening as deep voice as he comes off. He's just such he's there to help everybody, and what you're doing, and I'd love to be, on your show talking about that book.
That would be great. And it could be part of helping a million people.
I
So we can together keep trying to extend the ripple effect.
Yes.
And if any of you are listening to this conversation that Brian Swift and I are having, I hope that you'll return to the show as well and listen even more. The links for SOAR, if anyone wants to get involved with SOAR, links to your nonprofit will be in all the places where people find the podcast, along with your website and your books
Thank
and
you.
the pre-order form for Becoming Unparalyzed. Thank you again, Brian, for being here.
Bridget, thank you so much for this opportunity and listening and allowing me to be a little bit vulnerable. I appreciate it. God bless. Have a great day.
And now I can say in a different way, because I heard you mention it, now I'm a Swiftie.
Not that Swifty, because
Right. There's
that
but
one I'm not.
it's
I wouldn't
another
want to.
version of a Swiftie.
Yes. So that has been my nickname. Like, never got called by my name. It's
Uh-huh.
all by people outside, even at work, presidents, vice presidents, Swifty, coaches, Swifty. It was always Swifty. So even though I have to admit I was not that fast of foot as a young man, it was for some reason it just speed was not my thing. You know,
Uh-huh.
especially when you have a freshman coach that tells you, Swifty, if you were in a race with a pregnant woman, you'd come in third place. So I knew it was something I had to work on. But I appreciate you being a part of Swifty. I love to have you on the team.
Well, thank you so much. And everyone listening, have a great day.